Hello and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I want to give you an update on some of the plants I brought in for the winter. This is the cactus that I root pruned, made into a cascade, or am making into a cascade. And it has been in the house since, I would say, late October, early November. And what I want to show you, this is the cactus I had said blooms pretty reliably on Martin Luther King Day, which is the 15th of January. Today being the 7th of January. And I did a lot of serious root work on this and a lot of branch work. I didn't expect anything this year, but as I hope you can see, there's a flower bud here, one here, and I believe that's the only flower buds I see on here, but there is plenty of growth. Notably, these little round barrels that have appeared here and here, I'm anxious to see what they grow into, but this is well on its way. This tells me that the root work I did was not too severe, that things are growing well. This rock will either stay here or come out. I haven't decided yet. Nothing's resting on it except for right here against the rock. Otherwise, there's a space all around. So I think this can spend a little bit more time with the rock in there, and it will do very well. There's also, I'll try and zoom up. I don't have an indoor studio, so I'll try and show you what I'm talking about here. Here is some new growth right here. Also here. So most of the new growth that I see on this is on the left side of this tree. There's some here, some here. Here is where the flowers are. I'm sorry. Here is where the flowers are. And there really isn't much on the cascade section, although it's doing quite well. So that's it on an update. And I am going to officially call this my Martin Luther King Day cactus, adding to the holiday cactus nomenclature that I've heard out there. Next up is my Jacaranda forest. And this one, and once again I apologize for the studio here. But it is what it is. I do have to keep taking dead branches off of this. Or dead leaves, really. It is quite a messy tree indoors. And I'm trying to keep the mess to a minimum here. I promised my wife I wouldn't get it too dirty in our bedroom. Actually, I think I promised that I wouldn't spill any water. And so far, so good. All right, so this tree is doing very well indoors. It always does. One of my most reliable trees. And what I'm thinking of this time, here's where I chopped it last time. These two branches grew. I've been looking to chop them at leaf scars. I have one here and here. And hopefully you know what I'm thinking. The next chop will be here and here. And similarly, all throughout this, I'll be doing the same. So I want to bring this down significantly, but not before the next growing spurt which should be around March or April. So I'm going to let it grow for now, hopefully thickening this up. You know, it's thickening up the existing transition and then creating a situation for new leaders to grow. What I'm trying to do is to gradually widen the canopy, which grows straight up from the cuts. So as you can see, I cut it here. This is growing straight up from the cut. I cut it here. This is growing straight up from the cut. And if I can get that to happen lower down, eventually the canopy will widen out by itself. I do not want to wire these trees. I've seen what they look like wired, and they seem very contrived. So let's see what I can do with my jacarandas. Maybe one day I'll be rewarded with some flowers. These are supposed to have the most beautiful purple flowers. But I don't know if in a bonsai situation I'll ever get that. All right, so that's the update to my jacaranda forest. The next update is to my Schefflera. You're looking at the side which has been facing the sun. It's in a south window. As I turn it, you'll be able to see very clearly that everything is facing toward the sun. So when I put it back, I'm going to put it back with this side facing the sun. So I'm going to make a few branch selections now and see if I can trim this back a little bit. Leaf selections, really. This is too long. This is too big and out of scale. I think everything else is okay for right now. This is a little bit too long. But this is a very weak branch and I don't want to lose it. So, well, I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to leave this little piece. It's the only bit of foliage on this little branch. So maybe with it facing the sun, I'll get some growth on it. But that's my Schefflera. If you recall, I cut it all down completely. And everything that you see here from the main trunks is new. So it's done pretty well in the house. And I'm just hoping it fills out. In the summertime, the growth is more central and even in the pot. So when that happens, maybe I can come up with a style on this tree that I like. Right now, I haven't done that. It's still developing. The next update is my Jade trio. This stump had these two leaves on it. Since I made this cut, and since I brought it in the house, I've developed a branch with a sub-branch on that side and a branch with a sub-branch on this side. So I like the way that's growing. This one, which I left a secondary branch on, I'm a little disappointed in the growth that happened there. But this one has put on 1, 2, 3, 4 new branches. And I believe I mentioned that I would be changing the orientation of the 3 of these in the planting with the next repot, based on how it's growing. This bigger one in the middle, this is new, this is new, this is new. If I turn it around, this is new here. So I'm not that familiar with how these grow, so I'm just going to let it be and do some more chops when it seems appropriate. Probably when I repot. Okay, that's my jade. This next update is a little sad. It's my 30-year-old palm that I grew from a seed that had been vertical. When I took it out of the pot, it seemed to want to tip down this way. I did some significant root work, and it didn't like it. I believe this tree is a goner. This is the one that I called my dragon tree because of formation down here. Everything is all dried up. I mean, it's supple, but it's not bright green. I'm not going to throw it out on the compost just yet. I am watering it, but I don't have very high hopes for this palm. I was hoping it would look like one of those palms that it's just growing on the beach that grows sideways toward the, out of the wind, usually growing away from the water like this, a coconut palm. But hey, best laid plans. I don't even know how to tell if it's alive. If it puts on some growth, that's how I'll know. But there were 1, 2, 3 sets of fronds. 2 I cut back right away to let the other 2 flourish, and they have just perished instead. So, best laid plans. Oh well, I'll put it back in a south window, I'll keep it watered, and we'll see how it goes. Next up is my Lantana. I have 5 of them. 4 are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have 5 of them. 4 are doing well, and 1 is dead. This is obviously one of the ones that is doing well. My goal for this tree is an upright deciduous tree look. Some of these new branches are getting a little long, and I don't know when the right time to cut them is. They're not lignified, so I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer on it, but I'll give it a spin so you can see. It's a little flat, but it's a nice tree, or it could be a nice tree. What I'm thinking of doing is cutting it back to 2 leaves as soon as it lignifies, each branch back to 2 leaves. I know it wants to grow at the ends. It seems to be that is its MO. This may or may not be the front. There's an old root here that had been cut, hopefully for a good reason. But it's doing well. Let me get the others. Here's another Lantana that's doing well. I do plan to cut some of these back as soon as they lignify. And they do lignify quite readily. I love this one. It's got a great shape on it. The flowers are unbelievable on these. Let me show you the rest. This one I should have probably cut back shorter. I cut it back to here, and there was absolutely no growth on this when I brought it in the house, so these are all indoor leaves. Both of the ones that I showed before, those had some leaves on them when I brought it in the house. They were pruned back about a week and a half before these were, and then these were brought into the house with no leaves on them at all. So this is doing pretty well, and once again I'm going to cut them back once they lignify. Some of these leaves got a little dry, but it's looking pretty good. It's pretty solid in the pot. I'm going to keep that rock on there until those roots establish themselves. Remember, these were in a pot all together, and I did some severe root pruning to get them in these little pots, but I think they'll do well this summer. and I'll prune them back again and feed them come spring. This lantana was also pruned back very hard. You can see it had one serpentine branch here and the other one went up. I cut them all back. There was no foliage on it when it came into the house. And what you're seeing is all indoor growth just since I brought it in. And this is the sad story of all my 5 lantanas. This is the one that was different than the others. It grew long, long tendrils, which I have 2 cuttings that seem to be doing okay. They're in the greenhouse. But this indoors did not develop any leaves on it at all. I believe it is dead. So I'm going to say a little prayer. I won't touch it until the spring, but this one's probably going out to the compost. And lastly, these are my English ivy, which I cut back to be in some sort of tree-like form. The light green leaves all came since I brought it in the house. Interestingly, I let this one dry out just the other day, accidentally. I forgot to water it. It's not in a deep pot. So I was very concerned. These looked like they were on their last legs. But 2 days later, they've come back. They look all right. And the interesting part is my wife also had cuttings from this same parent tree, which she has some rooting in our plant room downstairs, but some she left out in a planter. And it has been very cold and disgusting out, and they look great. The leaves are uniform in size. They have nice coloration. As I was saying before the phone rang, the ones that are outside in the planter, in the, out in the weather, they're doing beautifully. The color on the leaves looks much better than the color on these leaves. So this may end up being an outdoor plant as I go forward. Certainly something I would leave in the greenhouse rather than necessarily bring inside. So temperatures that are just above freezing would probably be ideal for this. All right, those are all my updates for my indoor plants, my indoor bonsai. Thank you for keeping me company, this time in my bedroom.